How hard is it to learn the Russian language? It's both hard and very easy. First, let's get a few things out of the way. If you just want to be conversational, be understood and understood people, it's actually not that hard. A lot of people get scared for two reasons. One, they look at the letters and they go, oh, at least if I look at German or Spanish or Western European languages, I understand the letters. In Russian, it just looks like a bunch of gobbledygook. But it's not like the Asian languages where they have thousands or tens of thousands of symbols. Russian letters are, many of them share the same symbols as the Latin alphabet, which English uses. There are 32 of them instead of 26. So once you learn the 32, it's pretty easy. In fact, Russian is easier to pronounce than English. English is very easy to speak, but one of the hardest languages to spell and one of the hardest languages to read if you don't know the word to pronounce, because it's a mixture of, German and French and a bunch of other Welsh and a bunch of other languages together. And Russians studied grammar for a very long time, but in America, at least when I grew up, we studied spelling for a very long time. And we studied spelling way more than we ever studied grammar because the spelling is so irregular. So Russian, when you learn the sounds of the 32 letters, generally most letters only make one sound and the few exceptions are pretty easy to get. So Russian's actually very easy to read. And it's very easy to do basic communication. And I'm conversational. The biggest thing with Russian is not to have any fear. Where Russian gets complicated, and the other reason that a lot of people say that Russian is one of the hardest languages to learn, up there with Arabic and Chinese and so forth, is because of the grammar. The grammar is insane. Okay, it makes Western European, Latin, whatever, those are all cakewalks in comparison because you have the conjugations. Like I studied Latin, and it's been, 40 years or so, but they were like 6 or 7 common conjugations and like 20 regulars. Russian has like 20 or 30 common conjugations. And then Russian has some weird rules like if you have a verb, it doesn't matter. A lot of languages, like Romance languages, they have gender. So you have every noun is masculine, feminine, or neuter. And people who study Spanish are used to that. But Russian takes it to another level because it doesn't apply to the present tense of a verb, but it applies to the past tense of a verb. So if I say I run, but if my wife says she runs, it's the same thing. She would say I run. But if I say I ran, but she says I ran, it's different if a man says it versus a woman says it if it's past tense. And it can also affect the adverbs. And then, of course, they have gender on the nouns as well. And then they have so many cases because I forget what is synthetic and what is, there's 2 types of languages. So English, the word order does matter very specifically. In Russian, the word order matters a whole lot less, but the cases matter. So you can move words or at least groups of words around very easily, and it makes poetry very easy, but you have to learn how to change endings depending on which case it is. So if I say, I want something, if the something is the target of the verb, then it's in a different case. And if it's with something, then a case, and it's all these sorts of things. There are some things you do. There's no articles, there's no there's no things like that. But don't have any fear. And if you just, if you be like me and you don't care about grammar, and here's my advice. First of all, start with Duolingo. Duolingo, for most people, is a pretty good start. Okay? But if you want to try and speak Russian, once you get to the point, just improve your vocabulary. Learn the basic rules. I have a friend I actually have several friends. Some of them studied Russian in school, but one of them studied Russian for like 4 years, and he lives in Russia now, and he doesn't speak much Russian at all. I've never studied Russian, and people are often asking me to handle phone calls and things like that. So don't have any fear. Study only the very basic grammar. So for instance, I know how to do the past tense of most verbs, but I don't do the future tenses right. So I just smash things together. So if I need the future tense of a verb, I just say the equivalent in English of I will do something. Or if I don't know the verb for something, I will turn nouns into verbs by saying I want to make or do something. So if I don't know how to say I need to repair, I will say I need to do repair. And it's not proper, but the point is people understand me. And that's the main point you should be getting through. As a Russian, as a second language speaker, you will never speak Russian without at least a little bit of an accent, number 1. Number 2, you will never get the grammar perfect. There'll always be something you're going to miss because Russians study grammar literally all throughout school. And they can always pick out someone who picks up Russian as a second language no matter how many years you speak it. So don't try for perfection. Once you learn the words, smash them together. In fact, people call let's call it my dialect of Russian. They call it Ruski Zapykanka, which translates to Russian casserole, because I just throw the words together. I will even make nouns into verbs and verbs into noun by sticking endings on them. And again, if I make people laugh, then that's all part of the bonus. If I made somebody's day through my funny Russian, bonus.